After my divorce, all I wanted was space. Quiet. Somewhere I could finally hear myself think. I found it in an old farmhouse just outside Asheville, North Carolina. Secluded, surrounded by whispering pines and misty hills. It felt like a place that time had forgotten. Perfect. The house had stood since the 1920s. Sturdy wood, rusted hinges and a stone chimney that hadn't seen fire in years. There was a stillness to the place, like it had been holding its breath for a long time, waiting for someone to come back. That someone, unfortunately, was me. The first few weeks were peaceful. I spent my time fixing up little things, sanding floors, painting walls, clearing out the overgrown garden. At night I'd sit on the porch with a glass of wine, listening to the wind run its fingers through the trees. Then the noises started. It began subtly, just a light tapping behind the bedroom wall, almost like a branch brushing against the siding. But there were no trees near that side of the house. The sound grew over time, tap, 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 always between 2 and 3 in the morning. Sometimes it scratched, long, dragging scrapes as if someone were running their fingernails slowly across the inside of the drywall. I assumed it was mice, or rats, maybe even raccoons. So I called in pest control. They searched the attic, the crawl space, every vent and crevice, found nothing. No droppings, no nests, no signs of animal life at all. Still, the sounds persisted. Worse, they moved. What started in the bedroom wall began echoing through the entire house. Kitchen, living room, it's even the ceiling above me, like someone crawling inside the walls. I'd lie in bed, paralyzed, listening as whatever it was scraped and shuffled just inches from my head. I knocked once, it knocked back. After that I started sleeping on the couch downstairs. I couldn't bring myself to be alone in that bedroom with whatever was behind the walls. Then one night something changed. I was dozing off when I heard humming. It was faint, almost gentle, a tune, slow and sad. It sounded like an old lullaby, something from another era. It drifted down from the heating vent above me. At first I thought I was dreaming, but then the melody repeated, slightly louder. I sat up, straining to hear. It was a woman's voice, low, mournful, almost broken. "Hush, little baby, don't say a word." My skin turned to ice. I turned off the TV and held my breath. The humming continued, unbroken. It wasn't mechanical, it wasn't wind, it was real. The next day I went into town, desperate for some explanation. At the local hardware store, I asked the older clerk if he knew anything about the house. He paused when I told him the address. I nodded. He looked down and muttered, "Should have been torn down years ago." When I pressed him, he told me the story. Back in the 50s, a woman named Margaret Walker lived there with her infant daughter. Her husband had died overseas in the war, and she'd been alone for months. Neighbours said she started acting strange, claimed people were in the walls, that someone was trying to take her baby. They thought she was suffering from grief-induced psychosis. Then, one night she vanished. When authorities finally entered the house, they found the baby, starving but alive, alone in the crib. Margaret was never found, but the walls? They were torn apart from the inside, claw marks, and holes punched through the plaster. Sections where the lath had been ripped out entirely. She thought someone was inside, the clerk said. But some folks say it was her who got stuck in there. I left the store and drove straight home, heart pounding. That night I barely slept. The next evening, the scratching came back. Closer this time, just behind the living room wall. Then the humming again, low and distant, like someone humming to themselves in the dark. I froze. The voice was breathy, hoarse, female. I didn't answer. The scratching grew more frantic. The humming stopped. "She won't stop crying. I just need sleep." Something pounded from inside the wall, hard, desperate fists. I backed away, shaking, whispering, "Who are you?" There was a long silence. Then, softly, "I live here." I left that night, drove until I found a motel off the interstate. I didn't take anything, just keys and the clothes I was wearing. I never went back. I heard from the realtor a few weeks later. They said the new owners gutted the interior, turned it into a rental, During the demolition, the workers found something wedged inside one of the walls near the master bedroom. A child's rattle, wrapped in an old blood-stained blanket. No bones, no body, just that. I've moved 3 times since, but sometimes, when I'm alone in a quiet room, I still hear humming through the vents. Same tune, same voice. Hush, little baby. I've always liked old buildings. Something about the creaky floors and heavy doors makes me feel like I'm part of something with history. That's why I didn't hesitate when I found the apartment on the 7th floor of a pre-war brick building in downtown Chicago. It was exactly what I needed, quiet, affordable, and had a view of the alley where the snow piled up undisturbed. The place had that faded charm, original crown moulding, ancient radiators, brass doorknobs that never quite stopped turning. I signed the lease the same day I saw it. It started happening the 3rd week I lived there. At first it was the elevator. Around 2 in the morning, like clockwork, it would activate on its own. I'd hear the faint ding from down the hall, then the soft whir of the old mechanism dragging the cab upward. The elevator would stop on my floor, floor 7, and the doors would open. Then nothing. No footsteps, no doors opening or closing. Just the sound of the elevator settling. The first time it happened, I chalked it up to the building's age. Some faulty sensor, maybe. But when it happened again the next night, and the next, it felt intentional. Curiosity got the better of me one night. I stood by my door watching through the peephole as the elevator opened. There was no one inside, but the hallway lights flickered, just slightly, and then the silence became heavy. I can't explain it any other way. It was like the air got thicker, pressed in around me. The feeling of being watched clawed up my spine. I should have walked away, gone back to bed. But instead, I kept watching. And then I saw it, not someone, but something. The carpet outside my door compressed, as though someone invisible was standing there. Slowly, as if uncertain, the indentations began to move, footprints forming and disappearing, pacing in place. Then came the knock, just one, soft. Like the kind of knock you give when you know someone's home, but don't want to scare them. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The doorknob turned, slowly. Just a twitch. Enough to make it rattle in its socket. That's when I ran. I slammed the deadbolt shut, shoved a chair under the knob, and, well, I just sat on the floor until the sun rose. In the morning, everything was normal. No prints, no signs of forced entry, just the lingering sense that something had been there. Watching. Waiting. I decided to ask the building manager if anyone else had complained. Her name was Nancy, 60-something. Always wore a shawl and, smelled like peppermint. When I brought up the elevator acting strange, she raised an eyebrow. "You're in 704, right?" she asked. I nodded. She hesitated, then sighed. "That unit, there's always been something off about it. Ever since Mr. Bennington." I leaned in. "Who's that?" She pulled out an old maintenance ledger from under her desk. Flipping through it, she stopped at a page marked 1984. Howard Bennington. Lived in 704 for years. Died in the elevator. Heart attack, they said. But he wasn't found for 3 days. Thing is, when they did find him, he was standing, upright, as if he was waiting. I felt a chill crawl down my neck. Nancy closed the book. "Some folks say he never left. That elevator still runs at night, even when no one's called it." She met my eyes. "Don't open your door after midnight." I tried to ignore her warning. Told myself it was just an old story. But the knocking continued. Every night between 2 o'clock and 2:15. Always soft, always patient. One night I made the mistake of answering. I don't know why. Maybe I was just tired, sick of being afraid. Maybe some part of me wanted to see. I opened the door slowly, heart pounding in my throat. The hallway was empty. But the air smelled old, like dust and faded cologne. And the footprints were there again, fresh impressions in the carpet, leading from the elevator straight to my door. I stepped out just to prove to myself there was nothing there. And that's when the elevator dinged again. The doors opened. and someone stepped out, not visibly, but I felt them. The pressure in the air shifted. My ears popped. My body turned cold all at once. I stumbled backward, back into my apartment, slamming the door shut behind me. I heard the soft shuffle of feet approaching the door. Then the doorknob turned slowly once again. I whispered through the door, not knowing what else to do. "Who are you?" Silence. Then from the other side, "I live here." The voice was male, tired, lonely, like someone who hadn't spoken in years. I didn't sleep that night. In the morning, I found a faded photograph slipped under my door, black and white. An old man standing beside an elevator. Written in pen on the back, "Howard, 704, 1983. I still live in the building. The knocks don't scare me as much now. Sometimes I think he just wants someone to talk to. Sometimes I leave the light on for him, just in case. But I never, ever open the door after midnight." I've never been superstitious. Ghost stories were just that, stories. But you know, all that changed when we brought the mirror into the shop. I run a small antique store in Savannah, Georgia. The place is cramped and dim, with creaky wooden floors and the heavy scent of aged mahogany lingering in the air. Everything we sell has history. Most of it is harmless. Some of it is less so. The mirror came from an estate sale out in the historic district. The house had belonged to an elderly woman who passed away under somewhat strange circumstances, alone. In her parlour, surrounded by antiques she hadn't let anyone touch in years. Her niece sold most of it off. When I saw the mirror, I knew I had to have it. It was a stunning piece, 7 feet tall, Victorian. The frame was carved from black walnut, twisting vines and roses with a face etched at the top, a man's face watching. The glass itself was unusually clear, with a silver tint that gave it a moonlit glow even in full daylight. I placed it in the back corner of the store, leaning it against the wall across from a faded chaise lounge. It caught the afternoon sun just right. People came in and complimented it constantly, but they rarely looked into it for long. The first thing I noticed was that the store's air felt colder near the mirror, the kind of cold that sinks into your spine. At first I assumed it was just drafty back there, but even in summer heat, the area stayed chilly. Then, a few days after we set it up, I was closing the shop for the night. Lights dimmed, register counted. I walked past the mirror to turn off the back lamp and I froze. My reflection wasn't alone. There was someone behind me, a man. He stood just to the left of my reflection, tall, gaunt, in a dark suit that looked decades out of fashion. He had slicked-back hair and pale, waxy skin. His eyes were sunken black hollows, and his expression, it wasn't menacing exactly, just hollow, empty. I spun around. No one was there. Heart pounding, I turned back to the mirror. The man was gone. My reflection returned to normal. Just me, pale-faced and breathless. I tried to tell myself it was a trick of the light. Long day, stress, shadows. But it happened again the next night, and again the one after that. Customers began to complain too. One woman said she felt watched every time she got near the mirror. There was this young couple who came in and left within minutes. One of them claimed he saw someone moving inside the glass. And a boy, no older than 6, just burst into tears when his mother brought him too close. He said the man was trying to whisper to him. That same week, the mirror cracked. It started with a thin fracture at the bottom, barely noticeable, almost like a spiderweb forming in the silver backing. I hadn't touched it. No one had. Yet every morning when I opened the shop, the crack was longer, thicker. It was like something inside was pushing to get out. Then came the dreams. I'd see the man standing at the foot of my bed, just staring at me with those sunken eyes. Never moving, never speaking, just watching. I'd wake up sweating, my heart racing, convinced he had followed me home. One night I stayed late doing inventory, determined to get answers. I sat in front of the mirror, just me and the cold silence. For a long time nothing happened. Then, ever so faintly, I saw the man again. This time inside the mirror, not behind me, not as a reflection, but as if he were trapped within the glass. He was pressed against the inside, his hand flat on the surface, his mouth open in a silent, eternal scream. His eyes met mine. And then I felt it, this surge of grief and rage, like he was trying to pull me into his prison. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My limbs locked as my own reflection slowly shifted, changing into him. My face stretched, my eyes hollowed. Just before I passed out, I managed to rip my eyes away. The mirror shattered. Glass exploded across the floor, and with it that freezing pressure vanished. I stumbled back, shaking, bleeding from a cut on my hand. The man was gone. I loaded the broken pieces into my car that same night. I drove to the river, parked on the bridge and threw them in, piece by piece, watched them sink into the muddy water. I thought it was over. But weeks later, I was walking past a storefront downtown and caught my reflection in the glass. For a split second, barely a blink, I saw him again, standing behind me, still watching. And when I turned back, the glass of the window bore a single, hair-thin crack, like a warning or a promise. He's not gone, not really. And now, sometimes I wonder if mirrors reflect more than just the surface. Sometimes I think they hold things, and some things they want out.